The first time I saw her again, it was midnight. Her figure stood by the mango tree near my window, barely visible under the moonlight. I knew it was her, Nneka, the woman I once loved, who had left me for another man without looking back. But there she was, a shadow outside my home, staring, waiting. She didn't move, and she didn't speak, just stood there, a silent figure haunting the edge of my dreams. When I opened my door and stepped out, a chill ran through me. Nneka, I whispered, my voice barely a whisper. The night so still. But she vanished, fading into the shadows, as if she had never been there. But I knew she had come back. The next morning I tried to convince myself it was just a dream. Nneka left months ago, running off with Ayo, the rich palm wine tapper from the next village. I hadn't seen her since, not even at the market, but the feeling was heavy in my chest. My mother noticed my troubled face as we ate our yam pottage. "Did something disturb you last night, Chike?" she asked. I only nodded, unable to explain the dread that had settled in my bones. And when I passed the mango tree on my way to the stream, I could swear the ground felt cold, like something had died there in the night. People in the village began whispering about strange things. Okon, the village elder, claimed to have seen a woman like Nneka wandering through the night, lost and calling out for help. It was strange because she was supposed to be in her new village, living happily with Ayo. Nneka wouldn't be here, I told myself. She chose another man. But the rumors wouldn't stop. And each night I could feel her presence closer, a chill in the air, a shadow by the tree. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. By the fourth night I couldn't sleep. Every creak and whisper made my heart race. That's when I heard it, a soft, distant cry coming from outside. It sounded like someone was calling my name, but faint, like it was coming from far away. "Chike." The voice was soft, broken, and filled with sorrow. I jumped up, peering through the window, but there was nothing, only the quiet night. Yet I felt her, like she was right there, just beyond my reach, and a part of me felt the urge to go out and follow that voice. In the morning I was desperate. I went to visit Baba Ifeanyi, the village priest. I didn't tell him everything, just that I'd been seeing strange things and hearing voices at night. He listened carefully, nodding as if he understood. "Sometimes the spirits are restless, especially when there is betrayal or pain," he said, his eyes dark with warning. "If she's returned, it might not be out of love. There could be anger, bitterness, a desire to make things right." His words made my stomach churn. Nneka had left me, but maybe something had followed her back. That night I stayed awake, determined to catch a glimpse of her or whatever was haunting me. As the clock struck midnight, there she was, standing under the mango tree again, her figure just a shadow in the dark. "Nneka, why have you come back?" I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't answer, just turned to face me. Her eyes were hollow, her face a mask of sorrow. And then without a sound she lifted her hand, pointing behind me. I didn't dare turn around, my body frozen with fear. The next morning, news arrived from the next village. Ayo, the man Nneka left me for, was dead. People said he fell from a palm tree, his body found twisted and broken at the base. They said it was an accident, but others whispered that he had been cursed, that something dark had taken him. When I heard the news, my heart pounded with fear. Had Nneka's spirit come back to claim him? Was that why I kept seeing her? The village women whispered that a woman's betrayal could bring a curse upon her and her lover. Now everyone in the village had something to say. The elders muttered about the old tales, how a broken heart could bring a restless spirit back. They said Nneka's soul was troubled, trapped between the worlds because of the betrayal she had caused. Maybe her spirit is angry, one woman said, and maybe she regrets the path she chose. But I wasn't so sure. All I knew was that the sightings were becoming more frequent, and each night her figure seemed to come closer and closer. I returned to Baba Ifeanyi, desperate for answers. He told me that we needed to perform a ritual to put Nneka's spirit at peace, to send her back to the land of the dead. He gathered some herbs, muttering prayers as he prepared a small fire outside my home. If she comes tonight, we'll know she seeks something, he said. But be careful, Chike. Do not speak to her directly. Her anger might draw you in. His words filled me with dread, but I was willing to do anything to end this torment. That night, I stayed inside, a small candle burning by my window. The shadows danced on the walls, twisting and turning like silent ghosts. And then, there she was again, standing by the mango tree, her face lit by the faint candlelight. For a moment our eyes met, and I could feel the pain in her gaze, a sorrow so deep it made my heart ache. She mouthed something, a single word, but I couldn't make it out. Baba Ifeanyi's warning rang in my ears, do not answer her. But the urge to speak was so strong, pulling at my soul. I finally fell asleep that night, but my dreams were haunted. In the dream, Nneka was sitting by the river bank, her feet barely touching the water. She looked young and happy, the way she used to be when we first met. But her eyes, hollow and dark, stared right through me. You left me, Chike, she said in a voice as empty as the wind. You let me go. Her words made no sense, but her gaze held me like a curse. She reached out a hand, and I felt an invisible pull, like she was drawing me toward the river, toward something dark beneath the water's surface. I jolted awake, my body drenched in sweat. The next morning I visited Elder Udo, a man known for his knowledge of the old ways. I told him about Nneka's spirit and the strange events happening since her return. He listened quietly, his wrinkled face unreadable. Chike, he said finally, when a woman leaves a man in bitterness, her spirit can bring tragedy if her love turns to anger. If she regrets her choices and seeks revenge, that spirit will follow her lover, even to death. His words hit me hard. Nneka's spirit wasn't just haunting me, it was coming for revenge, and if I wasn't careful, it would take me too. That night I felt a presence by my door, heavier than before. I knew it was her, Nneka, but there was no longer any comfort in her presence. I could feel her anger, like a hot, suffocating wind. I stayed silent, praying she would leave. But then I heard a soft whisper, her voice like a hiss. Chike, come out. My heart pounded, my body frozen in place. I wanted to open the door to see her one last time, but something deep inside me warned me to stay put. If I opened that door, I felt that I would never come back. The next morning, Nneka's younger sister, Ada, came to my house. Her face was pale and her eyes filled with sorrow. Cheek, she whispered, her voice trembling. We buried her last night, but her spirit refuses to rest. Shock washed over me. Buried? I asked, my voice shaking. She's dead? Ada nodded, tears in her eyes. She passed days ago. After Ayo's death, she fell ill. The healer said her spirit was heavy with regret and sorrow. I felt a chill run down my spine. Nneka's spirit had returned because of unfinished business, because of me. Baba Ifeanyi told me there was only one way to free Nneka's spirit. I had to offer something personal, something that connected us in life. I found the old bracelet she had given me during our courting days, a simple, beaded string. I hadn't worn it in years, but now it felt heavy in my hand. As I placed it on the small altar Baba Ifeanyi had made, he chanted words in a language I barely understood. "Let this bond release her spirit," he said. "Let her find peace." My heart pounded with every word, hoping, praying that this would be enough. That night, for the first time in days, I felt a strange calmness. I thought the ritual had worked. But just as I was about to sleep, a soft knock echoed from my door. I froze, dread washing over me. When I opened the door, it was not Nneka, but a man from the neighboring village. His eyes were wide with terror. "Chike," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I saw her." "Nneka, she's wandering the path to the river, crying out for you." The calmness I had felt shattered. Nneka's spirit wasn't at peace. She was still searching, still waiting. I followed the path to the river, my feet heavy with dread. The moon was high, casting a pale glow over the water, and there by the edge I saw her, a ghostly figure dressed in white, her hair flowing in the breeze. "Nneka," I called out softly, but she didn't turn. She was murmuring something, her voice a haunting melody that made my skin crawl. I couldn't make out her words, but they sounded like a plea, a desperate cry for something beyond reach. I wanted to reach out to her, to tell her I was sorry, but fear held me back. The following day, I returned to Elder Udo, my heart burdened by guilt and fear. I told him everything, from the dreams to the voices and sightings. He listened quietly, his face darkening. When a woman dies with a broken heart, her spirit can turn restless, he said. But if she feels betrayed, it becomes a curse. Her spirit is bound to seek what was lost until she finds peace. And if she can't find peace, she will haunt all who hurt her. His words hung in the air like a warning. I knew now that Nneka's spirit wasn't just haunting me. She was bound by anger, a love gone horribly wrong. That night, I decided I couldn't run anymore. If Nneka's spirit needed something from me, I had to face her. I went to the mango tree, the place where I had seen her shadow every night. The air was thick with silence, the shadows long and dark. "Nneka," I called, my voice steady. "If you need something from me, take it. Take what you came for." The wind picked up and a soft whisper filled the air, her voice blending with the rustling leaves. But she didn't appear, only her presence lingered, heavy, like a weight pressing on my soul. The next day, I met with the village healer, Mama Nkechi, who had been known to deal with troubled spirits. She looked at me with sad eyes, shaking her head slowly. "A broken heart can become a powerful curse, Chike. If her love has turned to bitterness, you may never escape her spirit." Her words struck me, deepening the dread within me. "Is there no way to release her?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She looked away, her expression unreadable. "Sometimes the only way to break a curse is for the person who caused the pain to feel the same sorrow." I spent that night in deep thought, her words echoing in my mind. If I was truly to break the curse, I had to feel the pain she felt, to understand her suffering. It seemed impossible, yet I knew this was my only hope. I sat under the mango tree where she always appeared, trying to recall every moment we shared, every mistake I made. I whispered into the night, hoping that somehow she could hear me. "Nneka," I said, my voice breaking, "I'm sorry. I know I caused you pain. If I could go back, I would choose differently. But the silence swallowed my words, offering no reply. That night, I dreamt of Nneka again. This time she wasn't angry. She looked at me with the same sorrowful eyes, but now there was a glimmer of forgiveness. In the dream, we were back in our younger days, sitting by the river and laughing. I could feel her warmth, her love, and for a brief moment, I thought I'd found peace. But as dawn broke, I realized it was only a dream. Her spirit hadn't forgiven me. The haunting would continue until I found a way to truly release her. I felt more determined than ever to make things right, even if it cost me everything. The next day, I visited her family's compound, bringing a basket of food and a small cloth wrapped around our old mementos, letters, a necklace she had given me, and the bracelet I wore when we first met. I left the offering by her family's altar, a silent plea for her spirit to accept my remorse. The elders watched silently, nodding their approval. May her spirit find peace, they whispered. I felt a flicker of hope, but deep down, I knew this wasn't enough. I could still feel her presence, like a shadow lingering, waiting for something more. That night, I lit a candle and waited. The silence grew thick, the shadows in my room stretching and twisting. And then she appeared, not outside, but inside my room, standing at the foot of my bed. Her eyes were dark, her face filled with sorrow and something else, regret. Cheek, she whispered, her voice soft. Why did you let me go? Her words cut through me like a knife. I loved you, she said, her voice echoing in the stillness. But you were never there when I needed you most. And with those words she faded into the night, leaving only the weight of my guilt. After that night, I finally understood. Nneka hadn't just left because of Ayo's wealth. She had felt abandoned, unloved. In her eyes, I had failed her long before she left. My indifference, my neglect, it had driven her away, and now her spirit was bound to that betrayal. As the weight of this realization settled over me, I felt a glimmer of hope. If I could prove to her spirit that I understood her pain, perhaps she could finally find peace. It was my last chance, my final offering to the love we once shared. With the weight of guilt heavy on my heart, I knew there was only one place left to go, the sacred grove outside the village, where troubled spirits were believed to find rest. Baba Ifeanyi agreed to guide me, his face solemn and determined. As we walked through the dense forest, the air grew colder, the trees looming like silent witnesses. The path was narrow, lined with ancient stones, and the silence was thick, broken only by the crunch of leaves beneath our feet. At the heart of the grove, Baba Ifeanyi began to chant, his voice echoing in the stillness, calling on the spirits to accept my plea. At the center of the grove, Baba Ifeanyi motioned for me to kneel, and I placed the last of Nneka's belongings, a woven cloth she had given me, on the ground. I could feel her presence, stronger than ever, a cold chill that seeped into my bones. I am here to make things right, Nneka, I whispered, my voice trembling. I see now the pain I caused you, the love I failed to honor. As Baba Ifeanyi continued his chants, I closed my eyes, surrendering myself to the grove, hoping that my words would reach her, that my sorrow would finally give her peace. But there was no answer, only the silence of the trees around us. Baba Ifeanyi looked at me with sadness in his eyes. Chike, forgiveness isn't always given so easily, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Sometimes the pain we cause others is too great to be mended with words alone. I felt my heart sink, the weight of my actions pressing down on me. But just as I was about to lose hope, a faint whisper filled the air. It was her voice, soft and trembling. "Cheek," she said, "if you truly understand my pain, then prove it." I didn't know what she meant, but I felt a deep urge to find the answer, to show her that I had changed. For the next few days, I worked tirelessly, helping her family, repairing her mother's roof, and bringing food to her younger siblings. The villagers watched, some with pity, others with understanding. I knew that my actions couldn't change the past, but they were the only way I knew to make things right. Each night I returned to the grove, lighting a small candle, hoping that she could see my efforts. The whispers in the village began to die down, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange peace settling over me. Maybe she was finally ready to let go. On the final night, I went back to the grove, the last candle flickering in my hand. As I reached the center, I saw her, a faint shadowy figure standing under the largest tree. Her face was softer now, her eyes no longer filled with anger, but with a sadness that seemed lighter, as if the burden had finally lifted. "Thank you, Chike," she whispered, her voice barely audible like the wind. "I see now that you understand, that you carry the weight of our love." She gave a gentle nod, a small smile forming on her lips, and then slowly she faded, her spirit drifting into the night, leaving only the faint scent of earth and flowers behind. As the first rays of dawn touched the trees, I felt a tear slide down my cheek, both in sorrow and in relief. She was gone, her spirit finally at peace, and though the ache remained, I knew that I had been given a second chance, not to rewrite the past, but to live with the lesson I had learned. And as I walked back to the village, the weight of her memory stayed with me, a reminder of love, betrayal, and redemption that would shape me for the rest of my days. With Nneka's spirit finally at peace, the haunting ended, and Chike was left with a powerful lesson on the importance of valuing love and the deep scars betrayal can leave behind. This chilling tale became a cautionary story passed down through the village, reminding others of the power of love and the devastation that comes from letting it turn to bitterness and sorrow. Thank you for tuning in to Tales Motherland again. We sincerely appreciate your viewership, likes, and comments. Please be sure to hit the subscribe and like button and stay connected to us for new intriguing African stories and folktale. Once again, thanks for watching.